Hi everyone, welcome to Creating with Martelli, and today it's all about what?
The shoulder wrap.
It's all about the shoulder. I'm Lisa Gifford and I have with me
Margo Rathbun.
and we have so much we got to do today to be able to make a whole shoulder wrap from beginning to end, and that's what we're going to try to do. Of course, I did a little bit of prep work to kind of cover up some of the monotony of all the sewing and stuff, but Margo's going to be here for a lot of it on the camera, but a lot of times you're going to be back behind.
Moderating.
Yeah, she's going to be moderating. So a lot of you might have some questions, so be sure to post them, and I'll have either Margo will answer the question right there, or she will, let me know what the question is, and then we'll answer everybody's questions. I know there's going to be a few, and I know this has been a class that y'all have been waiting on for a long time. Oh my gosh, I don't know, what, 2 years ago we did this, or a year ago? Anyway, it was in the retreat, and so it's been a while since we've done it, and I know you'll have been waiting for it. So we're going to be doing the shoulder wrap, and so what are the supplies that you're going to need, Margo? We're going to need, you're going to need the template. So here's the 3-piece template set that you get with your kit, or when you get the when you order the template. So you're going to have the 3 pieces, and it comes with the full written instructions. Now, the written instructions is what we had done for the retreat, and we had showed making it with a jelly roll strip. But we're going to show you a more simplified version, just using a whole 2-yard piece of fabric, aren't we?
Yes.
Yep. What else do you need? You're going to need, I like to grab my little marking tool right here so I can kind of mark what size I'm going to be making. I'm going to do the 7, it's going to be 7.5 on your template. And that's the most common size. That's just the easiest to work with, and most people fit that size right there. You're going to need some clips. You need your rotary cutter. You're going to need fabric. You're going to need 2 yards of whatever fabric that you want to use. It's going to be the main fabric. You're going to also need 2 yards of your polar fleece, and that's going to be enough for this size. If you're doing the 7.5. Which is going to be 72 by 36. It'll be enough to make 2 of them with that polar fleece. You're going to need, if you're going to do snaps, like for the little gusset that we have in the front, you're going to need the snap gun and some snaps. Martelli actually carries these. Or you could use Velcro. You can do buttons. You can make buttonholes. You can do buttons. So it's up to you, or you not even have to have it at all, right?
Don't even need it.
You don't even need it. So you could either have it or not have it. I like to use a basting spray right here. I got in front of me some 505, but my favorite is the June Taylor. And I kind of just use this lightly just to hold the piece to your to the fleece. Yeah, to the fleece. Just so that you can keep it in place. You could use pins too if you want, but if you're going to be quilting it, or if you're just going to be doing some straight line quilting, or if you're going to be doing stitch in the ditch, you just need to hold it in place so that you get that done, and then you'll be putting your binding on. Of course, you're going to need the rotary cutter. And on the instructions, it has a whole bunch of different tools on here. It even, I talked about the chip markers because we are using strips and we want to keep your strips in order. The snap tool, I've already talked about that. A serger is optional. I do use the serger at one place, and that's where I'm attaching my pockets. It just holds it in place, and it just kind of smashes the material down, so it makes it easier for when you go put your binding on. Of course, you're going to need your iron. There's just several different things that's on here. So I'm going to go through this. I'm not going to necessarily be following this pattern verbatim. I'm going to be kind of just showing you, some little tricks, the tips that I use, and just making a simple whole cloth shoulder wrap. So we actually brought some samples with you. We got our Sallies up here. And this one here that Margo is showing is the one that we actually had done in the retreat. And you can see here it was just a really bright jelly roll strip that we had just sewed them one right after another to make this. And then sort of like a jelly roll race, I guess is how we had done it. Got the snaps on here. And then in our quilting, all I did was a serpentine stitch in between all the rows. I know you won't be able to see it on the back, but there's all of our stitching on here, and here the pockets are. The pockets are on the inside. They also have where you put a binding on them. So it's going to be simple like this, but just a single piece of fabric. So there's one example. What I love about the shoulder wrap, it is so versatile. You can do it with a single piece of fabric. You can do it where you're putting together like a jelly roll strip. If you want to do patchwork, you could do a patchwork. You just got to trim it down. And whatever we do, we have to trim it down. Here it is where I love making it with panels. And we had showed this one a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to open her up off of Sally. We're going to flip it around so you can see the back.
So Brenda Shoepelts is asking, if we don't have templates, is it going to be okay to make it without them?
Well, I use the template because it's a guide. I suppose you could figure it out. Just follow me along and see what it is that you could figure out on using to making it without the templates. It's going to be
angle that you
yeah,
gotta be
yeah. It's the angle that you're cutting
with that
to get
hockey stick.
yeah, with the big hockey stick we call it. So to get this angle, to get this angle, to get it where it angles out on the bottom, and then you're cutting that exact same angle, which is made with the pocket template, to make the pocket that fits in. So I guess it would be something that you could figure out how to do.
But you can try it and let us know how it works.
Yeah, there you go. So this is with a panel. So the thing with this project, you know, I'm doing the one where I'm doing 72 inches wide and 36 inches. So that's why I need 2 yards. Now, the rule of thumb on making this is that width needs to be twice the size of the height. So if you're going to do one that's 30 or that's 60, then you got to be 30. If it's 72, 36. If it's 80 wide, 40. Like if you're going to be doing like a guy like Greg. I think Greg
has 80.
Yeah, he did an 80. So he did 80 inches. So that's over 2 yards to get it to the 80 inches, and then 40 inches. Remember, most of our fabrics goes up to 44. So 42, 44. So with this one being 2 yards, and then the width of this fabric is like, what, 42, 43, 44, we're going to trim that off. And we use that extra piece that we trim off for our binding. And you need, what did we say, about five yards? You need about 5 yards of binding to put this all together. So that's important to remember. You need 5 yards of binding. Okay, so that's this one. So if you're doing a panel and say the panel's only 24 inches wide, then you've got to add enough fabric to it to get it all the way to the 72 inches. So I just found some coordinating panels or fabrics, and I just sewed them onto the sides. So then I got it to where it's now 72 inches. So then I had it trimmed off to get it to the 36. And then I used my tool to be able to cut it into the shape that we need for it to cut. So this one here is done with, that's Midnight Run, and that was Timeless Treasures, I believe, did that fabric line, and it was Chong Wong, so it's one of hers. This is the one we're going to be doing today. So this is the sample that I had made. So we're just showing you this in a full cloth. Very simple wavy lines is what I had done for the sewing, so it was very simple to do. And here you can see on this side, there's my very simple wavy lines that's sewed into this.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah, so there's no batting in this. So the fleece is your backing and your batting, I guess to say, in the quilting of it. So that's this one. Here's another one that we had done at the at the retreat, and I did it in a different colorway of using a jelly roll. And I think this one's bigger than the other one. This one is bigger. What I like about this jelly roll, even though it comes across like this, when it comes over your shoulder, it drapes it down. So it has a look of this on the front, which would be vertical, but on the back, it's going to be horizontal. Here is another panel that I had done, one of my very first ones with the panel. The thing with the panel, you just got to be sure that whenever you're going to be trimming that panel down, that you want that part to be focal. So this was a wider panel. I want to say this was a yard panel. So all I had to do was add enough fabric to the exterior, to the sides, to be able to get it to that 72 inches. And so this one, I believe, is 72 by 36. So this is what got cut off of that panel. I just kind of centered, trimmed off maybe a little off the front, a little off the back, and tried to imagine what my middle part would be. Here's another one of the Midnight Run line. So, and then just use this all over fabric. And I think this was a yard, and then just added enough fabric to get it to where it be 72 inches all the way across. And I did a stipple, just a simple stippling to quilt all that down. I think I used a variegated thread for that.
Yep.
And this is the first whole full cloth one that I had done. So that's that right there. Real easy to do. Just chose a coordinating fabric to put for the binding. And then I just used this charcoal, or I think this was called heather gray, for the polar fleece.
Yeah.
And then put the pockets in here. And again, this one is done with Velcro on here. So that's the sew-in Velcro. So really, really easy to do.
Yeah, and make sure you get the sew-in Velcro.
The sew-in Velcro. So I'm going to move Sally's to the side, and we're going to go ahead and get started. What do you think? All right, so you're going to pull out your templates, and I've got the ones right here in front of me. I've got my hockey stick, I got my pocket template, and this piece right here, the 3x8, this is to make that little placket. So another little piece of fabric that I also like to add to it is a little bit of fusible interfacing, whether it's woven or non-woven. It just gives that little placket just a little bit of extra stiff, body to it, particularly if you're going to be sewing onto it, like having the snaps in it, or if you're going to be doing the Velcro. So it just made it just a little bit firmer. So I put that little bit of stabilizer in it to make it firmer. Of course, with the clips, don't use the clips much except for maybe when I'm clipping my pockets on. If you're going to be pinning everything, you're going to need some pins. So I'm going to go ahead and set all these to the side for right now. And I'm going to show you the templates that you have in here. I'm doing the 7.5, so I'm going to use my marking tool, and I'm just going to mark that line, because I just want to know, that's the size I'm doing, and that's the most common size. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, you could do the 6.5, but I'm doing the 7.5. And I've got the 7.5 marked on our hockey stick. So I go ahead and get my fabric all ready to go, and I've got a 2-yard. We're going to do a couple of these, a couple of them, so that you can see how easy it is to cut this fabric. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Okay, so we brought 4 pieces up here. So we're gonna start with one. We're gonna go over it and over it so that you see exactly how to do your cutting for this, because you're going to have everything you're going to need with this cutting. You're going to have all the fabric you're going to be needing for the binding, unless you could do your own binding, but your fabric, the pieces that you get cut off, I turned it into the binding. So you're using pretty much every bit. It's almost like a zero waste.
Yeah, zero
right.
waste.
You're using just about everything on it. All right, so this here is just a piece of fabric that's 2 yards cut off the bolt, 2 yards cut.
I'm going to go to moderate.
You going to want to moderate? Okay, so Margo's going to go ahead and go, and I'm going to go ahead and start showing you how to do your cutting with this fabric. So I've got my 2 yards here. Y'all, could you use frogs instead of the placket? I don't know. I don't know what a frog is. Okay, so here's a 2-yard piece, and I've got it folded in half. Just going to make it easier for me to use. I've got the fold on one line. I've got 2-yard piece here. So the first thing I got to do is I got the fold on to me. I've got the fold to me. So I'm doing the 72 by 36. So I got a little bit of trimming that I need to do right here on this one edge, because we always get just slightly over 2 yards here. So I'm going to grab my ruler, and I'm going to just go ahead and knock this down, just cut this onto 36. So now I 36 and 36 is 72. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this little bitty sliver off right here. So now I have a fully squared up 2-yard piece of fabric. Now, if you'll see, I have the folds to me. I have the selvages away from me. This is how it worked for me, how I could get my brain to work on getting this project. And I have this lined up on my 0 line, 0, 1, 2, 3. I have my folds, my 2 folds where it's folded in half, the folds that came off the bolt right here, lined up on the 0 line. And now I've got to get this to be 36 inches because right now it is going to be it's a 44-inch piece where the salvages. So the salvages are away. And I've got it lined up on my board. Now I'm going to have to fold it up a little bit so I can get my ruler to cut all the way across. But I still have my folds lined up on my 1 line. Now I'm going to go over 18 inches from the fold, and I'm going to cut the selvages off, or that piece that has the selvages off, 18 inches from the fold. So I've got this lined up on the 0 line. I'm coming over here, and I'm going to my 18 inches. I'm laying down my ruler, 18 inches from the fold, and I'm just going to cut this excess off. Now, I don't waste that because I can probably get a really long 2.5-inch strip from that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. Make sure I got it lined up on the 18. Check twice before you measure, before you cut. Make sure everything's lined up the way you want. Again, I got both of I have it folded in half, and I have both of my folds up here. Got this on my 18. And now I'm just going to cut all the way across. Y'all got with me? So here is the piece that I just cut off. Set this aside because I'm going to trim this down to 2.5 inches, and I will have 2 big strips from this. And this is actually of usable 1, 2, 3. I have like 3.5 inches of usable fabric here. It's one really long piece, but I will be able to get two out of it. And like I said, you're going to need this for binding, and then some of the extra pieces that you cut off, you're going to add to that binding because you need about a little over 5 yards, 5 1/3 yards total to be able to do the binding. Maybe 5.5, almost 6 yards, because you got to go all the way around, and then you got to go to the top of both of the pockets. So you're going to need every bit of this, plus what you're going to be cutting off when we use the hockey stick. All right, so once I have this piece cut, then I go ahead and I open it up completely, all the way open. Now I'm going to take the 2 short ends, and I'm going to match up those edges. Right sides together, wrong sides together, it doesn't matter. But I'm just, right now mine are going to be wrong sides together. So I'm matching up the 2 short ends. And if I lay this down on my mat, you're going to see it is 36 inches. So I'm going to line this piece off and this piece off. Now you could iron this, but I don't. I just have it right off the bolt. And now I'm going to flip it out, and I'm going to have those 2 short edges to me. So now with this folded this way, it should be making a perfect 36-inch square. 36 inches this way and 36 inches this way. So I have it where I have now placed the raw edges to me, lining everything up. And the fold is away from me. Everybody with me so far? Mm-hmm. So in looking at this, this is my right hand. So I'm going to grab the fold on the right side. I'm grabbing this piece right here, the fold that's away from me, and I'm pulling it up and over, and I'm lining it up. I'm making a triangle now. And I'm lining up those raw edges that were on the side, and I'm now lining it up with the raw edges that was in front of me, and I'm lining up the top of that fold with these raw edges right here. So now I've just made pretty much a perfect little triangle right here. I mean, it's not it's not rocket science. I'm just lining it up everything the best I can. Now I've made a triangle. Smoothing out everything, making sure I don't got no little wrinkles under there. That's that seam right there. So I pulled it up, brought it up, lined up the fold now, lined up the fold with these raw edges. So I have a fold and 2 raw edges on the side here. And in front of me, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 raw edges. And now we got this big fold right here. Everybody here?
Yep.
Now we're going to get the hockey stick. Because this is just a placement tool. And this right here, it actually says cut line. If you want to use your metallic marker to write cut line, to fill in that cut line, this is your cut line. You don't use any of this inside at all. I don't even know why we got cut lines in here. You don't use this at all. You just use, you're going to only be cutting here. This is a guide. So since I'm doing the 7.5, now I'm going to take my hockey stick and put this on the overhead. And I'm taking my hockey stick and I'm bringing it down. So on the side that has the fold and the 2 raw edges, I'm going to line this line up with this fold and 2 raw edges right here. And then this edge right here is going to be slid down to the 4 raw edges. So this is just the cut right here. So I'm just lining this up on the 7.5, line here, lining up these raw edges with this edge right here. So this is my cut right here. This is what we're going to be cutting off. What we're cutting off right here is what we're going to be using to make an additional parts for your binding. Everybody with me? So this is it. This is the only cut that you do with this big ruler, with the big hockey stick. Pull these away. Now what you have just done, here's your sleeve right here, or actually here's the bottom, here's your sleeves. You open it up, and now you've got the shape. Everybody see how easy that was?
That's really easy.
We're going to do it again.
We're going to do it again.
We're going to do it again. So
James?
that's the first one.
Can you check the price of that template for somebody?
Yes, and it's actually on sale too.
Yeah, it's on sale this week because this is
Price is $56.25.
$56.25. All right, so
Thank you.
setting this one aside, we're going to do it again. So here's the big 2 pieces that we just cut off. So I can get quite a few 2.5-inch strips from this. It'll be biased, but it'll be perfect. It'll be fine. 2.5-inch strips, I'd be able to cut quite a bit from this to be able to use for the binding. So you don't waste this. So that's done. Oh, plus we're going to use a bit of it for the placket. So I use it for the placket too. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. That's the first one. We're going to do it again. We're going to do this green. So again, just like before, I've got 2 yards of fabric here. So I've got 2 yards, and I'm just folding it in half, lining up my folds up on top as it came off the bolt, making sure that now the half is right here on my one line. I might have to square it up a little bit. If it's over, it's over, just slightly over. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this up to the 36. Just trimming it up a little bit. Here's my waist. Now I've got this on my 0 line right here on the 0 line because from this fold I got to go over 18 inches. If I'm doing a 72 by 36, I got to go over 18 inches from the fold and cut. Say I wanted to do a 74. It may make it a little bit bigger. So what's half of 74 is going to be, what, 18 and a half? 19? I don't know. I can't think. what
Half of
is that?
74 would be 30.
37. So half of 37 is going to be
14,
18, it's gonna be 18.
18.
So if I did 20, it would be 80. I would cut it, I would do, if I did it 80 inches wide, I would be cutting 20. I would be cutting at the 20. So it would be 40 inches, but I'm doing the 36 by 72, so I got to get my fabric to be 36 inches. So I have it here. I'm going to fold it up a little bit so I can get my ruler to go all the way across, just lining up my edges right here. And the same thing, bring it down just a little bit, and I'm going to set my ruler on that 18-inch line. And I'm going to just cut that right off. Double check, double check. 18, 18, 18 inches from the fold. And just trim that off. So here's my big 2 long pieces for binding, setting that aside. Now I'm going to open this up. Here it is. Open it up. Now I'm going to grab the short ends, and I'm going to match up the 2 short ends. Here and here. And then I'm going to flip it away from me. I want the fold away from me and the 2 raw edges up against right in front of me. So now it makes a square. This should be a 36 by 36 inch square folded when it's folded. Got it here. Fold is away from me. I've got raw edges here all the way across. I got the main raw edge here. So again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to grab the fold that's on the right, grabbing it to the end, and I'm bringing it to me, and I'm making a triangle. Lining it up now 4 raw edges on one side, smoothing this out, bringing this fold up to this raw edge here, smoothing everything out. Grabbing my hockey stick. Taking this is going to go against the fold and the raw edges, and then this is going to go against the 4 raw edges you now have in front of me. We'll move it to the 7.5. Straight here, straight across here. Here's my cut. Here's my extra. Open it up. And there's our piece. Everybody see that? You want me to do it again? Should I do one more, Margo?
I would do one more,
Okay.
just so that they know.
I'm going to do one more. This has been the one thing that's been the hardest for everybody to see how to get the hockey stick to work. So we're going to do one more. Which one should I do? The cape, or should I do the roses? We're going to do cape. All right. So here's a big old piece of cape. I bet I have more than 4 yards here. Well, 2 yards here. It looks like a lot. So I think I do. I think I got 4 yards of this one. All right, so I'm going to cut me off a 2-yard piece. So bear with me a minute. We got a big piece here. I like going slightly over so I can square it up. So here's 1 yard. Yards. Isn't it so pretty? So just like, here's my 2-yard piece. I'm going to fold it in half, with the folds all on one side. Line it up on the edge, smooth everything out. Square it up just a little bit. Got just a sliver got to cut off. Here's my 2-yard piece. Making sure everything is still lined up. I'm going to bring this all the way to the 0 line. Now we're going to go ahead and cut our 18 inches from the fold. I like folded it up a little bit so my ruler goes all the way across. Keeping my folds on the 0 line. Now I'm going 18 inches from the fold, lining up check twice, cut once. And now I'm cutting off. All right. So here is my piece right here. Here is my extra to use for binding. Set that aside. And now what do we do next, Margo? We open it up.
Open it up. Make it 36 by 36.
Yep. Open it up. Match up my 2 short ends. So when it's folded now in half, lengthways, it's going to be a 36 by 30 inch square. So I flip it out, put the fold away from me, have the raw edges to me. Lining up my raw edges on the line here, smoothing everything out. Fold is away from me, raw edges are to me. Right-handed, I'm going to reach over so I can grab it where it's folded and bring it to me. Just making a big triangle. Smoothing it out. So the fold now has been moved over to be in line with these raw edges up here. Smoothing everything out. Doesn't have to be perfect, just close as you can. Raw edges and fold are here. Grab my hockey stick. Lining up this edge on the edge with the raw edges, 4 raw edges, and putting this line on the fold and the 2 edges. And here's your cut. Now, is there any questions on this part right here?
Nope, not so far.
We had go and ask, can you use a template for any other projects other than this? So let's get a pocket, absolutely, the 3x8.
Oh yeah, you'd be able to use these for anything. It just takes a minute just to figure out what other things you can do with it.
Yeah.
So here are my big pieces that I just cut off, 2 of them. And now I can use these for my binding, so I don't toss it. I'll save it for a little bit. Plus I need to have a little piece that I cut out for my placket, so you'll see. So I set this aside.
What's the angle on the hockey stick?
What is this angle? Hold on. Let's see if I can figure this out. Is that a 60? It might be a 60, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Hold on.
No, I think it might be actually like 110.
110?
Yeah, because if 90 is the right angle,
Yeah.
then it opens up.
Oh yeah, it's more that it's not. Yeah, it's going to be in the opposite direction. I don't know. I don't know what this angle
Yeah,
is.
I don't know either. I didn't look at it. Gwen wants to know if it's a ½ inch from the fold, and I'm not sure.
What's a
What
½ inch
fold?
from the fold?
That she just said, is it a ½ inch from the fold? Gwen, can you,
This right here?
no. Yeah,
That's an inch.
it looks about 135, yeah.
You know, the 8.5 is the whole thing. If I wanted my sleeve to be bigger and it to be wider, then I use the 8.5. If I wanted my sleeve to be more narrower, it brings it in. The 7.5, this is your sleeve part. So I want it to be 7.5. And then here's my cut. If I wanted it to be smaller, I can bring this to the 6.5. Line this up. So I'm going to be
She's got
cutting off another inch here.
She got it.
Okay. All right, so that's the last one we're going to cut up. So I'm going to open it up. And it's completely ready to go. So it's completely ready to be placed on our fleece. So here's what you do with the fleece. So if you're doing a bigger one, I would just lay this on one corner edge of your fleece and just smooth it all out if it's being bigger, because that fleece being cut from corner to corner, it might not be big enough for if you're doing a larger size. But if you're doing what I'm doing, you should be able to get 2 out of your pieces of fleece. So here's the fleece. It comes off the bolt. Generally, it is about, I'll tell you exactly how usable this is. So it's a 64, 65, 66, it's about 64 inches wide by 72. So it's more than what you need. But you got to have a piece cut off for your pockets. So what I do is I just take it and on one edge. The pocket itself is only about a little over 8 inches wide. So I would cut a 9 inches off on one end, 9 or 10 inches off of one end, because you're going to need that to make your pockets. So you got your 2-yard piece. I'm going to just cut a strip off of one end about 10 inches or so. I'm going to go 9 inches. So if it's 36 here, so I'm going to cut 9 inches off at the 27. And this is where I use my 60 millimeter because it just works better for this. I just need to be wide enough for me to be able to cut out 2 or 4 of my pockets, because if you're doing enough to do 2, you're going to be able to cut out 4 of these with this piece. So I'm just lining it up, and I'm cutting off a 9-inch piece. And then I'm just going to set that aside. Now with this big piece, like I said, it should be enough to make 2. So you're going to open it up completely, and you're going to cut it corner to the opposite corner all the way across. How I found it was easier for me to do this would be just to lay it on the floor and just do a cut. Like I said though, if you're doing a bigger one, then just go ahead and just lay this out. And it doesn't matter which side you want to use. And then you're going to lay your piece on top of it. So I'm going to imagine that this is cut. And this is one of the corners right here. So now I've got to lay my, the piece that I just cut onto this fabric here. I found it's easiest to do it if I just lay it on the floor, or if I have a wall where I could pin it to a wall. And then, because you're going to use a little bit of basting spray or pinning, and then you're going to pin your piece or baste your piece the fabric that you just cut onto this. So let's say we're going to grab this one right here that we just cut. So you got this angle piece that's on the bottom. That's this piece right here. That's the bottom of it. So I'm laying it down as close as I can to finagle it into that little area right here. And then this edge is going to run up this side, and this edge is going to run up this side. So I just kind of lay it down and get everything all smoothed out as best I can. Pin it, clip it, whatever, pin it basically, or use your design wall to get this to where it is completely with the fleece underneath it, and use some basting spray. So if you want, let's just go to the ironing station where I can show you one that I have already got done to do that. Sorry, so here's the one that I had cut earlier. Let me get this monitor on so I can see. So here's the one that I had cut earlier, and here's the piece of the polar fleece that I had done. So I had this polar fleece pinned to my design wall, and I found my center here, and my center here. This is where polar fleece had been cut in half because I had used this piece to make the other one. So this was the piece that I had left over. So it's the second piece. So I just laid it all onto here as best we could, had it pinned to my wall, and I actually can, you know, this is styrofoam, so I can just use the pins, or if you lay it on the floor. Then I peeled back half of it, put some basting spray on it, whether you're using the June Tailor or whether you're using the 405, just, you know, whatever you need to get it to securely hold it in place. Laid that, smoothed that side down, then pulled the second side back and did the same thing. So once you get that on here, then now you're ready for just quilting. So how do you quilt? You can just do what I'm doing here. I'm just doing some wavy lines. You can stipple the whole thing. You could do straight lines. You could do a grid, however you want to quilt it. So I have done most of it, but I still have a couple of areas I need to do. So I'm going to take this down, and we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to go ahead and get that get the last rows that I need to sew done on this one. So how are we doing out there, Margo?
We're doing pretty good.
Everybody still with me?
Everybody's still with you. We've got 52 on. We were up to 62 when we started.
What?
We had to have a few people leave to go to banks and the other stuff.
Yeah, the banks were closed yesterday, so
Yeah.
gotta get to the bank. All right. So I actually set up my machine. I'm using cotton thread. You know, I've made some with embroidery, nice thread, matching thread, whatever you have that will work, because you're just going to be quilting it just to hold it in place so it's not shifting and moving all over the place. So I've just set my machine up. I have it where I've got my needle in the middle, and I think I've raised my stitch count up to around, about 350 or something. I wanted a wider stitch on this. So, and I just started in the middle, and I just started moving the fabric around just so I could just get this wavy line. It's just a wavy line is all I'm doing. And I just have a couple of more to do. And I started in the middle, so I knew where my center was, and I started in the middle and just kind of worked my way down. But you could go across, you could go angle, you could do just a stipple. Again, you could do whatever you want to just get it secured onto here. So I've got most of it done. I just got a little bit more to do on the sleeves, or what I call the sleeves on the sides. And then we will have this completed done, and then we're going to trim it up, and then we'll work on getting the pockets and the binding done. All right. Leave that a little bit, have that extra bit of fleece on the one side, so you can, that's your starting point, and then you just go off and go. Everybody with me?
Yep.
Did you see how easy that was? Just freeform. I don't even have any rhyme or reason to it. Just freeform it down. I think I need to do maybe 2 more. And 1 more on this side. Whichever makes it easiest to get it under your machine and just get those freeform stitches just sewed.
They say you make it look so easy.
It is, it is. I think I just need to do 1 more on this one. I could maybe get 2. Let's see if I can get 2. The key is the basting spray, let me tell you. Having it basted, it makes it so much easier to handle. I'm going to get 1 more row done on here. Okay, so I just did these loose curves all the way across. And so I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to hold it up so that you can see. I don't know if he can get a good shot, but that's the back. Just wavy lines. No rhyme or reason to it. It's just tacking it and holding it all down. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trim everything off. Trim all this excess off. Because we're going to be putting our pocket and we're going to be putting our binding on. So just like anything, I just go ahead and trim it right up there against the edge. Trim all this excess material off right here. Don't need it. Line it up as straight as I can. Sometimes it moves just a little bit. You just want it to be nice and straight. So if you end up trimming a little bit of the project off, it's not going to hurt it. It's just going to make it nice and straight. And that's just from quilting. You know how everything just kind of shifts a little bit. I'm going to trim all 4 sides. Well, there's more than 4 sides. I don't know how many sides there are. I've never counted. All right, going across the bottom. This is the back. This is the bottom piece. Okay, I want to trim a little bit more of that off because I don't want to see the, make it easier if I have it just everything trimmed off to where I don't have any of the polar fleece showing where it's just fabric. Now we got this side to do here. I think there's 6 sides to this. anybody counted? I don't know how many sides there are. Any questions? Everybody still with me?
Well, Jackie wanted to know if you could use decorative stitches from your machine.
Oh,
for
goodness,
freeform.
yes.
And I said, yes, of course you can.
Yes, this one was the serpentine stitch that was on the machine when I had done on the one that we did a retreat. I just did a serpentine stitch. You can do whatever kind of stitching that you want. Of course, for me, when I'm doing my decorative stitches, it just takes longer because the machine slows down. All right, now this piece is, I'm just getting ready to cut off just the piece that goes across the top. So I'm just going to lay my ruler on here, and we're just going to trim all of this down. I'm not worried about whether I'm cutting off a little bit of the fabric. I would rather cut off a little bit of the fabric than not have any of the binding, any of the fleece showing. Of course, we're going to cover all this up with our binding. Just want a nice straight line. And I just got the last bit right here. Pull it under up a little bit. I don't want to distort the pocket part. That's the last of it. Okay. So that's all the excess all cut off. So now I'm going to just set this aside for a minute because we need to cut our pockets. And then we need to cut our binding. So I'm going to just set this aside, out of my way. Grab that extra bit of polar fleece that you had cut off. Maybe you cut off that 10-inch strip. So now you need to cut your pockets. And that's this piece right here. You need two. So I just have what I had left from earlier from the fleece that I had cut off. Got my two pieces right here. So they're just stacked up. And I'm just going to lay my template on here, and I've got my raw edges on one side. I'm going to make sure I get that nice and straight. So I'm going to get to where they're just nice and straight on one edge, because I'm going to set this template now. Here's my 7.5. I'm just going to set it right there on that line, and now I'm just going to cut all the way around. And this will be my two pieces for my pockets. All right, so here are my pockets. So what I've got to do now is get the binding done, because we're going to put a strip of binding across this one, across this long edge here, and across this long edge on this one. So I'm just set these aside. Now you're going to go ahead and grab all of that extra fabric that you had cut off, and you're going to make binding. And I've already got it pre-made, so you didn't see me making pieces and pieces of binding. But I'll show you, say on, let me grab the one that we had just done, say like this piece right here. One of these pieces, I've got to cut my placket first. So I just keep, it's all together. I've got this big long strip. So grabbing the big long strip that you had just cut off, you got to get your placket piece, because you need two of these. So I just grab a piece on one end, and I've got them, doesn't matter, you're cutting a 3 by 8 inch rectangle. That's what you're going to need. So I'm just going to cut a piece off. You're going to need two of these. And
Lisa,
then grab,
Are you familiar with something called blizzard fleece?
Blizzard fleece, yeah, same thing. There's polar fleece, blizzard fleece. It's the same, I think it's the same thing. The best place I found to get it, of course, Martelli sells it, and it's really not that expensive, but a lot of times Joann's will have, this is the time of year you might be able to get it for 30, 40, 50, 60% off. And then just go pick up a couple yards of it. So knowing if you're picking up 2 yards, you're going to have enough to make two. So I always, You know, of course, I got this from the Martelli store. We actually sell it at the shop. You could just call the storefront and they probably would cut it and get it to you. And I know we have several colors. We got this tan, we have this real pretty cream, we had some yellow, we had some black, we had some of that heather gray. But then I've seen it, you know, all different colors, all different patterns. You just need to have 2 yards because it's just the backing. It's just the lining for your little polar fleece. Is that the question? Did I answer that?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so you're going to need your 2 pieces for your placket, but you're also going to need a piece of fusible stabilizer. So I actually have mine already cut back here. So I've got some short fuse. You could use some woven or non-woven, just something just to give it a little bit of body. So you're going to cut that to this section from one of those long strips, and then the rest of this, you're going to go ahead and cut it into, I prefer a 2.5-inch strip. You could make it wider if you want, if you like a little bit narrower. This is what the 2.5-inch strip will be at the end. So I do a 2.5-inch strip. So I cut this into 2.5-inch strips. I get as much as I can from it, and then I just sew them together end to end to make about 6 yards. You're going to need about 5.5 to 6 yards total of the whole thing. So what is that? 5.5, 3 times 150 to 180, about 180 feet. What? A yard is 3 feet per yard. So that's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need at least 5 to 6 yards. So I'd just be safe, make 6 yards. You'll be able to get enough from all of this. So you use it from this, and then you're gonna take this piece right here, and you're just gonna lay them out, and you're just gonna cut 2.5-inch strips. Just cut, just sew them all together, and you'll have this big long piece like I have right here. So I just have it all sewed together. I didn't do the bias cut. I just had it where it seamed together, just a straight, sewed together. And then I take it to my iron and I just pressed it in half. So it's ready to go. So we press it in half, and now we're going to go ahead and put it onto our pockets. And then we're going to take the pockets and we're going to attach it to the main project. So that's why these are all set aside. So we're going to go ahead now. Got my binding all done. Just make you a big long 6-yard strip of it. Sew them end to end, press it in half, roll it up. You're going to be using it. So here we are. That's where we are. So I am going to go to my sewing machine. We're going to sew this on. So I'm just going to stitch it across. I'm going to attach it onto the long edge. That's where it's going. Or the long edge on both of them. So I'm just going to sew it at a 1/4 inch all the way down. Fold it over. And then stitch it again. So I'm just lining up my edges. I'm just going to sew it a 1/4 inch all the way down. All right, sew it all the way off, and then just trim it. 1/2 done. Now we're going to grab the other one. Let's see, so it's going to be on this way. Grabbing my piece, and here's where I had seamed it right here. And stitch this on. Now we're going to go to the iron and I'm going to press it back. But you just got to be careful when you're pressing to not get it so much onto this piece right here. And while we're pressing, I'm going to go ahead and grab my 2 pieces of my placket and my fusible, and we're going to go ahead and get these ironed up, and then we'll do the second step. So here's my 2 fabrics for my placket, and I just got to iron this on one of them. So I'm just laying it on here, and we're just going to press that on.
They're all happy you're doing this.
What? Yay!
Yay.
It's about time, right?
One thing off our bucket list.
Off the bucket list. I probably get an email a week on when we're going to have the shoulder wrap, or where's there a video, or do you have any more pictures? Get every week. So here's my 2 pieces, one with the fusible and one without. So then I'm just going to set these aside. Now I'm going to carefully press this back, and I don't want to rest my iron too much on this fleece because it is a polyester. I think I got my iron set on a cotton setting. So I'm just getting it on the edge on this side, and then I'm going to press this one back. Kind of give it a finger press and then just run the iron right up against that edge. Not putting too much of it onto the polar fleece or blizzard fleece. You see, kind of mashes it down a little bit. Then we're just going to pull this over, and now I'm just going to do a serpentine stitch just to stitch it down. So that's all we're going to do here. And then the placard here, I'm going to go ahead and put them right sides together, and I'm going to stitch all the way around, but I'm going to leave an opening, you know, about 1.5 inch, 2 inch opening, because then I'm going to clip my corners, and then I'm going to also press that out. So that's the 2 sewing projects we're going to be doing right now. So we're going to stitch this down and stitch this up. Here's my big piece of binding. I'm just going to set that aside because we're going to use that at the end. Since we're still in the 1/4 inch setting, I'm just going to go ahead and get the little placket done first. Matching up on my edges, and I'm going to start here, and I'm going to sew all the way around and then end about 2 inches from that starting point, and being sure to back tack at the beginning and end.
You're getting tons of hearts.
What? And last bit. Okay. So now that I've sewed this all the way around, I'm going to trim off a good bit of this excess fabric at the corners so we can have some pretty points. Any questions?
Nope.
What?
Just lots of hearts.
You know I love my hearts.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the storefront today, weren't we, Margo?
We were.
What did we see?
Uh-oh.
That new fabric line.
Yes, we
You know,
did.
one of my favorite designers besides Chong Wong of Timeless Treasures is Laura Birch with Clothworks. And her brand new line just came out. And if you know her, you'd know her. She's done those really cool cats and the horses and the angels and the mermaids. So
These are dogs, right?
these are the dogs. And the colors are stunning, as Laura Birch always does. and lots of blues and blacks. It just gorgeous, gorgeous. And we're thinking, what were we thinking we were going to do with one of them? What were we going to make? I can't remember.
Didn't I say I was going to make my shower curtain out of one?
You're
of
going to
those?
make your shower curtain, your shower curtain out of one. But there was a project that we were thinking to do,
Oh.
and I can't remember what it was. Oh my goodness. Wasn't the shoulder wrap, was it? No. It was, well, can't think about what it was. We'll think about it in a minute. All right, so I just went ahead and pushed it all the way out. And while we're here by the iron, I'm just going to go ahead and press it, make it flat. Make sure my seam is turned on the inside. Make it nice and straight. I'm trying to remember if we top stitch it. I believe I do top stitch it all the way around to close that opening.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is there a way to measure the length of the arm when making petite and tall? Would you measure from fingertip to fingertip?
Well, the tall, I don't,
See.
fingertip to fingertip. Well, the one that we made, Graham, and she is pretty petite.
Yeah.
We did hers with a 6.5 inch cut. So I believe we did hers at 70 inches and 35. So 70 inches wide and 35 inches, you know, width and height.
Yeah.
So we did 35 and 70. We just took 2 inches off, and then I cut it at the 6.5 on hers. And she's, like I said, the one we made her, she's a really petite, and that was perfect for her.
And Greg is
Yeah,
tall.
Greg is
and
tall.
his was 80.
So we did his at the 80 and 40. And so he just needed the big piece, the 2-yard piece, or well, at least he would probably he wouldn't have to have a full, a 2-yard piece is what he's going to be, and he'd have it angled on there so it would fit the that 80 by 40 total thing to be on there. So that's what we had done, and he's tall. How tall is he? About 6'4", 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". So he's pretty tall. And Graham is real petite. So I don't know how to answer the question of measurement. I just know that 6.5 was pretty. I mean, whatever it is width is you're going to have your height has to be the half of that. So if you did 66, it would be 33. If you did 60, it would be 30. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a top stitch all the way around, and that will get this piece will be done. So I'm just running this along the edge. And I increased my stitch length to 3.6, 3.5. And I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch or so along the edge. And the whole purpose of this is just to close that opening up. And one more. And then final. All right. So now this piece is pretty much done until we go to put it onto our shoulder wrap at the end. And now that's the last step is doing this. So I'll set that aside. So now we're going to get back to finishing up our pockets here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on a simple, on my machine it's just a serpentine stitch. It's 2 and width of the stitches is 5. So I'm just rolling it over. Holding it back. Now you could clip it. I could grab my clips and I could clip it, but I just kind of rolled it and hold it in place. And I'm just going to do a serpentine stitch all the way across, all the way down. These pockets are on the inside. They're never really seen. And we're just going to stitch this down. Kind of just folding it over, holding it in place, and just stitching it down. So here's the front, right here, and then here's our back, right here. So I got a little bit extra. I'm just going to trim that off on both sides here, and trim it off following the angle, and just trim it off right there. That's going to be hidden in the when we put the binding on, but I'll show you that in a second. All right, so the last pocket, same thing, kind of fold it over, hold it in place, and just do that serpentine stitch all the way down. Almost to the edge. All right, come right off. Go ahead and trim off your excess off of each end. I like having it come off about an inch off on each end so I can just try to catch it all and then be able to trim it at that angle on the opposite end. So this is done. Okay, so now the next step is attaching these to our project. And this is where you can clip it, pin it, hold it in place that way, do a temporary stitching to hold it down in place because you're going to be putting the binding on over top of all that. I found it was easier for me if I just go ahead and just serge it. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to go back to table. I am done with this template. I am done with this template and this one and this one. Well, I don't know. I might not be done with this one, but I'm done with these, so I can go ahead and set these aside. All right, so here's my project. These edges right here, these are your sleeves. So I'm going to flip it over. And now you're going to take your pocket and you're going to line this up like this. So this edge right here, this right angle goes with this right angle right here. And this angle is what's going right here on that slant. So remember how we cut our pocket? It matches perfectly to fit based on if you cut it at that 7.5, being that this one is at that 7.5. If I would have been at the 8.5, it would have been a bigger cut right here, another inch. If it would have been smaller, it would have been another inch in. This one we did at the 7.5. So it should and it will line up perfectly right here on this edge. So I just lined it up here, just like that. And I'm going to grab my clips. I'm going to temporarily hold it in place. So I'm going to clip it here. I'm going to clip it here at just a couple different places because we're going to go to the serger and we're going to serge these 3 edges. It holds it in place. Everybody with me on this part?
Yep.
So that's one side done. And I'm going to flip it around. Grab the other one. And the same thing, I'm going to put the right angle right here on this edge. It will line up right here on this point here, and and then lining up this angled edge right here. There's our 2 interior pockets. And go ahead and put some clips in it. All right, so there it's clipped, clip, 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 one more clip right here. So the only thing left to do now, you could keep it like this and go ahead and put your binding on, but I found it's easier if I just, like I said, just serge, 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 or zigzag stick, or whatever it is, just a stitch, just to hold it down. Why I like this serging is because it kind of compresses all of this doubled up polar fleece, and just kind of makes it just a little bit slimmer for when I'm going to sew on the binding. So that's what I found was the advantage of using a serger, or if you do a zigzag stitch or something to kind of compress it a little bit before we go put the binding on. So we're just going to go over here. Now I've got gray thread on my machine, but you are not going to see it because it gets completely covered up by the binding, so you won't even see it. My little scissors here. I'm just going to start. I'm probably going to start on one of the straight edges here, go here, then go here, and then go here. It doesn't matter. Just getting it all compressed all into place. Getting some light. All right. One edge, and then I'm going to go up this long edge here. All these extra tails, they're all going to be hidden. Then I've got this last one here, and I'm just going to flip it over and serge that down. Lining up the edges and just sail away. Repeat that on the other side. So this one, all done. Completely serged all the way around, just to hold it in place. Go to the other side and repeat that. Last side here. When I get to that point, then I just kind of veer off the edge. Trim off all the tails. And that is all of the serging that you're going to use. Now, we can go ahead and put our binding on, but there's one thing that I like to do before I go to put the binding on, and that's where I like to put the divide, sew the little divide in before I put my binding on. So if you'll see on the project, is it this one? Here, I'll grab it on this one. The pockets are a double pocket. So I just stitched this seam, and I just used the serpentine stitch, and I did stitch this seam, and I did it with this piece that was being sewed onto here. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch it in. Now, I know it's going to be the opposite direction of what the stitches are, but I promise you, it won't really be noticeable at all. So I just sew that on, and it just gives them an extra little pocket for, what would you use that little pocket for, Margo?
Cell phone.
Cell phone, tissues,
Kleenex.
Kleenex. So where I like to position it is where this angle is, where it angles, where it starts doing that from the 90 and then it comes and the angles. So I just kind of imagine that line straight up from there. So I'll just sew from there and then I'll back tack right here. And I'll do that on both sides right before I go to start putting the binding on. It just seemed like it was easier to put that stitch in there than it was to do it after the binding is put on. All right, so I'm just going to do the same little serpentine stitch I already have on the machine, because we're going to see that on the binding. A little back tack right here, and then we're just going to serpentine up. When I get to this piece right here, I come all the way up to the top, and then I just back tack it. So now I've got this two little pockets now. And here it is on the other side. It's not real noticeable. Go ahead and clip your threads. And repeat that for the other one. Coming in right at that angle. Your threads and catch it on the other side. And that's it. So now we're going to start the binding. I like to start at the bottom here. This to me, the smaller piece, the smaller edge on the bottom, that's the bottom. And that's where I like to start with my binding. So I just grab it, and you know, it doesn't matter. It's however you are comfortable. This is the same as putting in a binding on a quilt, except I'm just adding the serpentine stitch on stitching it down instead of like stitching in the ditch, so you're just not seeing our hand stitching it. But I attach it to the front side, I press it, and then I roll it under, and then I just do my serpentine stitch all the way around. And I am going to prep this. So I like to start off my binding where I open up my piece that I folded. Matter of fact, let's just go to the ironing station. I'm going to show you what I do. My beginning piece, how I begin, is here's my piece that I had pressed, but this is my beginning. So I open it back up and I fold it and make a triangle, or what is that, like a 90? I just fold it over and then I fold it back over. And you're going to see how I do bindings. There's lots of different ways to do bindings, and this is the one that I've done for a long time. I know there's ones where you could match them up perfectly. I just kind of tuck mine in. So I just bring it up, fold it. So I'm going to start stitching here, and then I'll stitch down a couple of inches, then I'll bring my foot back up, and then I'll stitch it. So then when I bring my tail in, it's going to tuck underneath here. All right, so we're going to, like I said, we're going to start at the bottom. I'm going to grab my piece. I'll clip it in a place just so you can see it. But I'm just going to start somewhere on the bottom, not so close to the edge, maybe like center. And I'm going to start sewing here. And we're just going to pivot and just go all the way around. Everybody with me?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody need me to do another cut? Y'all got that? Got one more piece of fabric left. We can cut that up. Don't we, Margo?
We do.
We set aside 4. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get this sewed on. So here's my big strip just all rolled up. We're going to start sewing. You don't want to see me do this? I mean, I could stop and just show you how to do the placket, but we're going to go ahead and make this whole thing. All right, so I'm going to start right over edge. I'm going to have it on 1/4 inch. And we're just going to go ahead and just stitch this down. It's going to be caught. We caught it already. Pocket's caught on the corner. Give me a second. There we go. All right, so I'm going to sew down a couple of inches. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Forgot to lift it up. Forgot to lift it, Margo. Okay,
Oh.
clip, clip, clip and rip. I sew underneath first before I bring the top back over. So we'll just pull this out. First big boo-boo of the day. Everybody's got to have one. I sew down a couple of inches. And then I cut my threads. And then I fold it over. And I do my corners just like any other. Bring it up, pivot, bring it over, and then slide it down to meet that edge. It's not a 90, it's a little bit, it's less than that. So now I'm going to bring it in about 1/4. And then just continue on. Coming up the long edge. We're going to be getting to the pocket soon. All right, so I'm coming up onto the pocket, and I'm just going to keep on making sure I'm using every bit of that 1/4 inch so it completely covers all of that serging that I had just done. like to go back a little bit, making sure all of my serging stitches are disappearing, and they are. I'm not seeing them at all.
When you're doing that fold, can you do it so that they can, a couple of times so she can see what you're doing? Please.
Okay, so I just sewed within 1/4 inch of the edge here, where it's before it starts rolling down, before it angles down. So here's my fabric, and I just take it and I just pop it up, line it up this edge here, and then I slide it down so that now this fold is coming out from angled like that. I don't even know how to put that into words, because I know this is not like a typical right angle or 90 degrees, so because it's a little bit different. So I do the same thing as what you normally would do for doing a corner, except now it's more at an angle. So normally we're doing the same thing. We're popping it up, and then I'm just folding it back down on itself, and then bring it to where it's going to look like this for flipping it back. It's going to have this little pleat that's right here.
Can you pull that down a little closer to your foot on your machine? Yeah, right in that area.
Okay, so
yeah, there
can
you
see
go,
that?
James. That's better.
I get stuck on the screen and sometimes.
Are you seeing that? So let me show. Here's where I stopped within 1/4 inch of the edge, right here. And then because it's not a total right angle like we do here, so I've sewed to 1/4 inch, back tacked, cut my threads. Now I'm just going to take my strip, I'm going to fold it up. So now I'm lining up the raw edges of my strip with the edge here. So it's lined up straight. And then I fold it back down on itself to line up with that edge. And I bring it down till I have just this little pleat right here. Can you see? Here's that little pleat. And I'm going to start sewing 1/4 inch down from the top of that pleat, to top of where I have it folded over. We'll start there and then just continue sewing. Did everybody catch that?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go forward a stitch or two and then back tack and then just continue down. Now this one's just going to be like a regular 90-degree angle like you do on a quilt. Come within 1/4 inch and back tack. Cut your threads. Now I've even seen some people that came within 1/4 inch and then just angled off to the corner. This is what I've always done. So same thing, just like I did for this piece right here. I'm just going to bring it up and then just bring it down and lining up the top of my folded over with the top of the quilt, and then I'm going to start 1/4 inch down, do a little back tack there, and then just continue on. Now we're actually going across the top. Reposition this. Using every bit of that 1/4 inch to cover all those serger seams. Little thready. more questions, Margo? Is everything good?
Nope. No questions.
Everybody got quiet.
So quiet.
All right, coming up onto the other pocket on the other side.
Lots of hearts.
What? Anybody going to be in Daytona this weekend?
Oh, there you go.
What, Margo?
I said, oh, Laura and Heather, I think, were online. I think they still are.
Yeah, Curtis and I are thinking about going. It's the closest AQS show to us, and he's never been to one. I'm sure he'll just have so much fun.
Yeah.
He'll want to go do something motorcycle-y or something, I don't know. All right, coming up onto the next corner. 1/4 inch away, back tack. Now we're going to rotate around. Same thing, pop it up, fold it down, line up the fold with the top, start 1/4 inch in. Little back tack and go to the next angle. Double checking, make sure I'm catching all the serger stitches, and I am. This is not convenient. I got a seam that's going to be right there at that corner. We're going to make it work. All right, we're at the section where we're going to go down. We're almost got this first part done. Reposition. So remember, some of your pieces are kind of biased, they're kind of stretchy, so just don't stretch it when you put it on, just lay it down and continue sewing. We're not needing to do any curves, but it's just stretchy from the pieces that you had cut off from make your strips. All right, so we're coming up to the bottom, almost done with attaching it. And when I'm 1/4 inch away, I back tack, cut my threads. Now here's what I'm going to do to this part. I'm going to attach this here, and I'm going to come down, I'm going to sew it in to where this has been folded, where it's not sewed, and then you'll see, I'm just going to sew it in. I'm just going to start here. So I'm going to probably cut this about an inch in where it's completely covered in here. It's going to be stitched in under here. You won't even see it. Reposition this a little bit. So I'm bringing it down and I'm overlapping it. So it looks like I did about 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to cut it where I'm about an inch in. It's going to be tucked into where I had opened it up to stitch it down. And I give it a little tug just to make it nice and taut. Just to stitch it into there. Now I'm going to cut my threads, come back, and now I've got it folded over because now I have it tucked into here. So now I'm just going to lay this down, and now I'm going to stitch over that completely and close that up. All right, so it's all tucked in there. All right, so the last thing to do is I'm going to give this a press all the way around, and then we're going to top stitch it all the way around. And this is how much I made too much of. I made too much binding, so I got extra.
Better to have too much than not enough.
No kidding. All right, so I am going to just kind of push this back and just iron this to make it a little bit easier for holding it in place for when we're going to do our serpentine stitch again. Now's a good time if you want to go ahead and get some of those creases that I didn't get out earlier. I'm just going to grab my water and I'm just going to kind of run it over that seam right here. I'm going to press that out too while we're at it. Get that wrinkle out. Another thing it does by giving it a good ironing is just setting all the stitches that you had just done. Just sets it all. And at the same time I'm just rolling back my seam. Just makes it a little bit easier to handle for when you're doing the final stitch. We still got a big group with us?
We do.
What?
We do. We have 56 on right now.
That's good. Rolling it back. Any more questions for us, Margo?
No.
I think they want to know, is that a medium weight fleece you're
Yeah, I'm
using?
just answering her.
Oh, yeah?
It's just the regular polar fleece. I don't think it's like a medium. It's not. It's that fun. You could use the fun fleece, the polar fleece. It's just the fleece that I get
From Joanne.
from Joann's, or the store has it.
Yep.
It's like comes in a big, huge bolt. There's like, I want to say it's about, I'm trying to think of the width of it. I think this one is I want to say it's 60 or 66, something like that.
They're liking the fabric too. Very pretty.
Yeah, the big bold, I think big bold prints would be good for this project. If you're wanting to do just out of all fabric. I just sewed a wrinkle in it. Okay. Get the last of those creases out. Okay, so it's all done. So now I'm just going to take it back to the machine and we're just going to press it, I mean, roll it under and just serpentine stitch all the way around.
We're almost finished.
I know. Well, we still got the placket.
Oh, yes.
Placket. Placket or not. I knew this was going to be a long class because this is a big project.
Yes, it is.
All right, I like to start on the bottom where I had started before. Rolling it under. I just hold it with my fingers and just serpentine stitch. But you could just stitch in the ditch if you wanted. You could take it to your machine, and, or you could hand stitch it if you wanted. It's whatever you want to do.
Did you change your stitch?
I did. Yep, good. Rolled off of me. Turn in my first corner. Repositioning. Right, coming up onto the pocket, so it's a little bit of thickness right here at the beginning. Rat-a-tat-tat. You hear that? Rat-a-tat-tat. Rat-a-tat-tat. It's the little threads. I'm just folding over my corners and getting ready for stitching. Got a big thickness right there, so I'm going to grab my jumper. It's going to help me walk through, get past that spot right there. Kind of wanted to hang up right there on that big thickness right there. Half the battle is making sure you don't have too much weight where it's pulling on it. Just like any quilt when you're quilting it or putting the binding on. Very thready that binding strip was. So close to being done. Now again, this is a little thick right here, so I might have to have my jumper, if it struggles, right there. So I'll put my jumper behind, and I'll get beyond that. I think we are got one more corner to go. So we're finishing up the second pocket. Well, I got some thickness here, so I'm going to set my jumper behind.
Lisa,
Yeah.
can you explain the jumper tool?
This one came with my machine. I don't know what exact. Okay, I use it for. Okay, we call them. I think they're called jean jumpers,
Yeah.
steam jumpers. They got two different thicknesses. They have a thickness here and a thickness here. So if your foot is having difficulty going over a real thick area because it might be the front is up and the back is low and it don't want to go over that. So if you set this underneath your foot from the back side, now it levels out the foot and it can go over that little bump. So that's what I use, a jean jumper. I've seen them on Amazon. Aren't they called jean jumpers on Amazon? So I was wondering if that question would pop up because I did use that. I used that for that. It's just a tool that I always have in my toolbox, or that I always have by me in case I need to pull it out to get over a thicker area. It's going to roll back on me. There. There we go. For some reason my fleece wants to roll back on me, so I'm forcing it to lay down. All right, coming up to where we started. There we go. Not the most prettiest endings, but we got it all done. Clip off some of these extra threads. Everything caught all the way around. So now the only thing left is to put our placket on. So here it is all done. So what I lay it down in front of me and I bring my edges to the front. And I'm matching it up. So like if I was going to fold it. So you see that? This is upside down, but that's where I've got it, like here. Now I think in the video or in the instructions, I talk about how far up to put your placket. Of course, it's wherever you want to put it. I mean, that's comfortable for you. I'm trying to see if I actually have a number of how many inches up from the pocket. 9. Of course it's not in there. All right, so where's the one I had made? I think it's over here.
Can you find it?
It's on the bottom? Yeah.
There it is.
All right, so here's the one that I had done earlier. That's just like it. So I'm going to measure up how many inches up to getting the placket on, because it's super, super easy, and then you're just going to put your snaps on it or your Velcro or whatever it is that you're using. So I have from the very bottom, I need my tape measure. I think I got one in the drawer. Of course not. Grab my tape measure, it's over here. Okay, from the very bottom, this is started at 10 inches. It's 10 inches up from the bottom. So if we're going to follow that guide, 10 inches up from the very bottom right here, and of course I want to look at the direction because I want to make it sure which side I wanted my buttons on. So it's going, I'm placing it onto I sew it down on the left side, so it's going to be sewed onto this side. So 10 inches from the bottom from this piece right here. So I'm going to go up 10 right here, and then that's where the bottom of this is going to be. But I wanted it to be centered. So I push all of this together. I line it up to be right beside each other, and I'm going to crease it. So I'm going to go to the iron and I'm going to give it a little crease just at the bottoms. It's just a guide because I'll pull that out later. I needed to find the absolute center. And I dropped that tape measure. So we're going 10 inches from the bottom, and I want this center to be right there in the center of where I have the two meet. So I'm bringing it up 10 inches, and that's where the bottom is going to start, 10 inches up from the bottom. Going up 10 inches. And if you want, you can get your chalk and you could mark that. And I'm just going to slide this underneath at that 10-inch point. And I'm going to have it laying right there at the 10-inch. 10, 11, whatever you feel comfortable with. And this is where I like to grab a couple of pins, because I can't really clip that. So I'm only going to stitch one side. I don't stitch the other side. So I kind of pin it into that place, making sure that my center there is my center is there. Just pinning it down on the one side. See, just pin it down. Now I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm just going to do that same serpentine stitch right here on this edge. Just one serpentine stitch, and I'm going to show you like I did right here. Just a single serpentine stitch just going down. And it locks it on, it sews it on. And then the last thing is just to place your snaps or your Velcro. So there, that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sewed on. Pretty little serpentine stitch right here. And it's already on the serpentine stitch because we just sewed that. I'm going to start right there on that where we had done that top stitch all the way around. I'm going to have the edge of my foot just right along the edge of that top stitch. That way it's going to keep it nice and straight. So the edge of my foot is going to be riding right along the edge of the top stitch. It'll be nice and straight. All right, and I think that's it. Now I like to do 3 clips, but again, it's up to you. I like to put 3 of the, what are they called? Snaps.
Dome
I like the snaps. I like to do 3 snaps on mine, so I kind of position them, you know, top, middle, and bottom on one side, and then I, you know, mark them on the other side. But that's our shoulder wrap. That's our shoulder wrap, y'all. We got this video done. How do y'all think? We finally got it done.
Yes.
Yay. So I just got to put the snaps on it. And I'm not going to put those on right now, but here you are, all done. You got your two little pockets on the inside. It's bound all the way around. Just take a moment and clip any threads that you have, and I think you want to come back up, Margo?
Sure.
Here you go. Yay!
Now, somebody asked if this was for a man, would you put the placket on the other side?
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably, right?
Yep.
Yep. Here, Margo, you put this one on.
I put this one on.
I like it because you can roll down the cover a little bit. It's a great length on the back side. Great for like if somebody's in a wheelchair. It's not cumbersome. If you don't want to wear it as a shoulder wrap, they can drape it over their lap, and it could be just something to keep their legs warm.
Good for
So
a
it's
person
just
in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's very good for a person in a wheelchair. So it's just comfy. It's just very nice. So we
Nice
match.
and warm. We
We
match.
matchy. Wow, so I think we got it done.
We did.
We did. And I said it was going to take 2 hours.
Yeah.
All of it. And it would have been longer than that if I wouldn't have done some of the prep work. So to have some of that prep work done, well, I don't know. We did a lot of cutting. I showed you three times how to get that cutting done. So I hope you got it and understood how that hockey stick works. It's not anything but a guide and one cut line. If you have any questions at all you have to do is shoot me an email to learn@martellinotions.com. Learn@martellinotions.com. This is going to be here on this main page. We're going to make sure we get it onto the Creating with Martelli Facebook page, and we will get it uploaded to YouTube, and we'll have the email and the phone numbers and all that good stuff on there. So where do you get these templates? You could get them at martellinotions.com. I don't know how much retail is, but that's the best place to pick up your templates to make this. If you want to grab the snap gun with all the snaps in here, we also sell those at martellinotions.com. All the tools, the rotary cutters, all the different things that I used here today, snips, you can also pick them up on the website.
And the fleece you can get at the store.
Yeah, just get them at the store. You can get it at the Martelli storefront, the fabric, or pick it up at Joann's. Let me tell you though, they have it in so many different colors, and they have it in so many different patterns. You can just have a lot of fun with it. You could put a really fun solid fabric on the outside and have the fleece be all fun and a cute print. I mean, there's just so many beautiful fabrics out there, and grab those fabrics that have big bold prints on them. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So I hope you enjoyed this class. Experiment with it. Do it with jelly roll strips and make a patchwork. You just got to remember you're going to be cutting it down and you're going to be cutting off pieces. You might not be able to use that for binding, so you'd have to have another fabric for your own binding. But I hope you enjoyed this project. It was a lot of fun. It was Margo who had actually found this, and we tweaked it and made it ours. So thank you again. This was a good day, and I'm so glad we were able to get this done for you. Y'all have a wonderful day. God bless. Email us at learn@martellinotions.com. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this class. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.